If you're enjoying Gems with Shom, follow the show. We're just getting started. Welcome to Gems with Shom, a show about beat digging, records, and other things. Today, I'm joined by DJ Rashida, world-renowned DJ, longtime tour DJ for a little-known singer out of Minneapolis. If that wasn't enough, DJ'd for many of your favorite stars, Pharrell, Bruno Mars, CeeLo, Khalees, and many more. Been on several TV shows, magazines, music festivals, parties all over the globe. And a true beat digger with deep crates, or Mama Crate series online, is super successful and excellent taste. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. You've DJ'd all over the world, done modeling with brands like Vogue, Essence, Vibe, partnerships with Fendi, Nike, Apple, and you're a beat digger. It's at the center of what you do is music. I knew we'd have a lot to talk about.
Yes, I love talking about music, to say the least.
Yeah. You are a world traveler. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Los Angeles, which is where I currently reside and where I've lived most of my life. But I also grew up partly in New Mexico, which is where my mother is from. My dad's from LA, my mom's from New Mexico. And then I went to high school and college in Atlanta. And Atlanta is where I credit becoming a DJ. I don't know if I would have become a DJ otherwise. Definitely, I grew up in two musical households, so music has always been a major part of my life. But as far as actually getting turntables and DJing, that was totally just from the scene that I was immersed in Atlanta. And I think the access to so many different genres and music chambers that were going on in Atlanta in the 90s, which is when I lived there and went to high school there. And then I came back to LA.
Tell me about that time in Atlanta and what made you get into DJing.
So Atlanta, Georgia in the 90s was pretty amazing. This is not just pre-internet, but pre-even the radio stations all being homogenized, and music was very, regional. Music was very regional. And what I loved about Atlanta is that it's kind of like we got everything from New York, we got everything from Detroit, Florida, and then Atlanta obviously had its own thing. And so for me, I think, growing up in two households where both of my parents have excellent taste in music, and now I've, come back around to mostly listening to their music. But in high school, I was a huge hip hop and dance hall and R&B head. And Atlanta had spaces for all of that, and I loved that. But also Atlanta had a really special deep house scene and raver scene and jungle and drum and bass. And that to me was kind of just this whole new world and discovery that I felt like was mine, because a lot of kids I went to school with and even my friends weren't into that, but it was just kind of my special thing that I really loved. And we got all the best DJs from everywhere. I feel like Atlanta was just a hub at the time, which I really appreciated. And I guess probably in a lot of big cities, the college radio shows were so just broad in the musical tastes and yeah. So I feel like Atlanta was a really special place to come up in the 90s. Yeah. Did I answer the question? That's what got me into DJing for sure.
No, you definitely answered the question. I appreciate that. You mentioned your parents. Tell me about that musical influence.
Yeah, so my mother was actually a Spanish radio DJ in the late 70s and early 80s. And my mother especially loved salsa and jazz music. Billie Holiday's like her favorite singer. And so I grew up hearing kind of a mix of those things in her household. And she also is a musician. She plays the flute. And when she was pregnant with me, she was, in college for music and I guess doing her final. And at the time she was playing the saxophone. And so, it's just always been music. And she sang in restaurants and stuff. That's how my dad and her met. She used to sing Spanish boleros and like torch tunes, kind of like mariachis, like they go from table to table. And so my dad used to come to the restaurant that she sang at and would come there every weekend. And that's how they met. And because he was going to school in New Mexico, which is really random because he's like this cat from South Central LA, and I don't know how he ended up there, but that's how they met. And my father, he I don't know, I feel like so much of my musical taste is comes through him and is shaped by him. So, he named me after the John Lucian record Rashida. So my life literally began, via music and his love of music. And he loved Brazilian music, Antonio Carlos Jobim and Milton Nascimento and Astrud Gilberto. And so my love of Brazilian music, I think, obviously comes from him, but also he was a jazz head and a soul head. I mean, Minnie Riperton, my first introduction to her was him. That's one of his favorite singers. And, every Stevie Wonder, James Brown, and Marvin Gaye. And, I mean, just growing up listening to all that was really beautiful. And he's from LA, so he loved like the Beach Boys and stuff like that I didn't really appreciate when I was younger, but now I get it. I'm just like, oh wow, this is, it's deep and beautiful. And yeah, so those are the two music households that I grew up in, different, but both, I've gotten so much from both of what they're into.
Can we touch on John Lucian for a moment? One of my favorite artists. I didn't know you were named after the song Rashida. And when I was a teenager beat digging, I kind of continually spent more and more on records.
Mm-hmm.
And that John Lucian Rashida record, I really wanted it for a long time. And it was, at least for me at the time, one of the first more expensive records I bought. And by the way, expensive is not a lot. It was like $40.
Right.
And for me, it was a lot of money at the time. I remember how much I love that record. I have multiple copies, and I'll just say it's like a personally great artist and a great song.
Oh God. And I mean that whole album and just John Lucian, his whole he's one of those artists that's like they've created their own category or their own chamber. And yeah, I don't know, his music to me is like it's like water, or he's like tapping into something, I don't know, something otherworldly. Yeah, he's just such a special artist, and I love that record. And it's so funny because I've never looked for the record, and I've actually never even seen like what it cost. So that's interesting to hear that back in the day it was going for that much. I still have my dad's copy, so I only have one copy. But now that you said that, I'm like, I should get some more copies of that record.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful record. I mean, his whole catalog is. He's got other great albums, other
Yeah.
great songs. I think something about his deep baritone that he gets to, I think it like shakes people's soul a bit.
Yeah, no, there's something very deep and touching about his music. And that's the thing, right? It's not just like some of his songs or whatever. He's one of those no skips, artists where you have to listen to the whole record and just immerse yourself in it. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Beautiful album, beautiful artist. And for all of our audience, check out that song, Rashida. Hell of a song.
It's beautiful.
All right. So you're in Atlanta, at least when you started DJing.
Mhm.
Tell me about your kind of early times DJing.
I really actually never planned on being a DJ per se. I like I said, I was kind of around this really cool music art scene where, you know, my friends were like skaters and graffiti artists and also DJ'd, and everybody kind of did different things. And I went to art school in Atlanta. It's SCAD now, but it used to be ACA, Atlanta College of Fine Arts. And my plan was to become a visual artist, because that's the other, you know, constant in my life and my upbringing is drawing and painting and, you know, visual arts. And I got turntables because I was working at a store called Wish, which is still there in Little Five Points, Atlanta. And they used to have DJs on the weekends, and so they had turntables. And because I was already a music head, I put myself in charge of booking the DJs. And so it kind of allowed me to like get closer and kind of see like what was going on. And that's when I got interested, and I said, oh, well, I was already making mixtapes with like, you know, my double tape deck. And I was just like, oh, this means I can make like really good mixtapes. And I had already inherited, pillaged my parents' record collections. And I don't know, it's just something I wanted to do, but not necessarily outside of my room. And so I was a bedroom DJ for a good 4 years, I want to say 3 or 4 years. And I was just making mixtapes, and I was in heaven. And then of course I started buying records, like new records, which was also really exciting because you know, I had inherited all this, some of the music we spoke about, this amazing soul and funk and stuff from my parents. But then I went back and started recollecting all my hip hop CDs and all the stuff I had on tape and CD, you know, and that was exciting. And this was all my first year of art school. And then I started working at a record store called More Dusty Than Digital. And once again, I put myself in charge of ordering all the electronica because it was more of like a digger's paradise. It was like, you know, hip hop records, and then like, you know, Bob James one would be on the wall on display, and you know, so it was that type of shop. And so because I had become this like heavy house and jungle head, I put myself in charge of like ordering all the broken beat and the electronica for the store, which was exciting. But working there really got me serious about collecting because you know, I had my parents' records. And again, going through my parents' records, I mean, they had a lot of really coveted records that I didn't know were coveted at the time, right? Because you just grow up with them. And so that was exciting. But then it put me on this, you know, these missions of trying to find my own stuff. So, perfect example, you know, Memory Band, Rotary Connection. You know, my dad, I grew up listening to Minnie Riperton, but he didn't have any Rotary Connection records. And so like, you know, for me, that was probably one of my first missions, was like to collect all of those. But the first and foremost was to get the Bonita album samples, you know. So then that put me down the Roy Ayers rabbit hole, and it put me down the Rotary Connection rabbit hole. And yeah, so it was exciting, but that's what it was for me. It wasn't about DJing. It was about, you know, collecting these records, and it was about making my mixtapes. That's what I cared about. And then I had friends in Atlanta who were throwing parties, and they, you know, they knew that I had my setup at home and my records, and so they kind of just started forcing me to come play. And you know, I'll never forget my very first gig. It was for the homies. I don't know if you've heard of the Frank 151 magazine from back in the day, the little magazine. Yeah. So basically our whole friend group like contributed to this magazine. Like, you know, I took photos, you know, I played the parties, my friends would do graphics for the, like all of us just contributed, right? And so the very first time I play for them. We're playing this party, and I look back on it because I'm like, oh right, I really used to just play whatever I wanted because I wasn't even thinking about like how to work with an audience or and so the very first song I ever played was the Four Hero uh remix of Naima. Or
Okay.
no, or maybe it was Black Gold of the Sun. It was a
Okay.
Four Hero rework of one of those songs. And it just makes me laugh because I'm like, I play like an 8 minute long jungle jazz tune, at a party. But that's how I started. And then once I started playing out, I kind of liked it and people liked it. And then I just kind of got in my head the idea that this was something I could do, and then I started getting paid to do it, and then I was just like, oh wait, what, you gonna pay me to play records? Like, that's amazing. And I think once that clicked for me that like I could actually make a living doing something that I would be doing anyway and that I really loved and enjoyed. I think after that the universe just conspired to make it happen for me, and DJing became this vehicle that has literally introduced me to all of my living heroes and put me in every place I ever wanted to be, even in the visual arts scene. I've played so many gallery openings and museum exhibition openings and for some of my favorite artists, visual artists, and so it's just really amazing, that this vehicle of music, it goes so far beyond just music, and yeah, so that's how it started. I moved back to LA and I was DJing, in different live music venues, and that's how I met Prince. And once I met Prince, that was, well, right before I met him, I had decided that I wanted to pursue just DJing as making a living, because prior to that, I was bartending, doing different stuff in clubs and DJing, right? Because I wasn't actually making enough money DJing to make a living. And right before I met Prince, I said, no, I'm gonna go for it and see if I can just DJ. And like I said, the universe, you put it out there, conspires. And after I made that decision, maybe like 2 months later, I met him, and then it really became a career for me, and it's been 27 years. And to this day, it's allowed me to take care of myself and my family and have this really amazing life. So I'm music. I'm just like so thankful. So thankful.
It's a hell of a journey you just walked through. There's so many parts that I want to dig deeper on. You mentioned your parents' great
Hmm.
musical taste influencing you to working in a record store and
Hmm.
also going to art school. I think there's some kind of connection between art school and people successful in the world of music. I mean, there's so
Mm.
many people we could think of. Mobb Deep went to art school.
They
The
did?
Roots,
I didn't know that. Oh, that's like,
they went to a high school in Manhattan. The Roots famously went to art school together.
mm-hmm,
Devo, they went to art school. So there's
mm-hmm.
some kind of like backdrop of art and music that kind of comes together. It certainly did for you.
Definitely. Well, I mean, when I was in art school, all of my whatever I was working on, there's always a soundtrack. And if the soundtrack wasn't super influencing what I was working on, there was, I mean, I can think back to just some of the pieces I was working on, and it's like they had soundtracks that I played over and over and over and over, and like to me I can't separate them, they to me, I feel like you can't have one without the other. So yeah.
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 It makes sense to me. The way you explained it, these connections make sense. So I have to ask, you mentioned meeting Prince. He's
Mhm.
obviously a global icon, but it's more than that. It doesn't matter how famous he is. He's
Mhm.
just simply one of the most important people in my life, and I've never even met him. So I have to ask your experience in meeting Prince.
I mean, I will just say that he changed my life for the better. He changed my life in every way. He was such a blessing on my life. He's been such a blessing on all the lives that he touched, even people that didn't know him, right? And then, to actually not just to know him and to be close with him as a person, which was something else. Um yeah, but how I met him was I was the resident DJ. I'm like, sorry everybody, I'm getting over a cold. I was a resident DJ at the House of Blues in Hollywood. And for those that don't know, the House of Blues is like a world famous live music venue. Everybody and anybody that you can think of has played there. And I got the residency there. I was playing in the foundation room, which is like the artist's room. And I had already put it out there into the universe and kind of told people that I didn't know if he had a DJ because his poster used to be on my wall. And I would just tell people that it's a longer story of how I got the idea in my head, but one day I got the idea in my head that I didn't know if he had a DJ, but if he had one, I just felt like it would be me. And so I started telling people that. And to this day, people remind me and they were like, I thought you were crazy. And like, I can't believe that it actually happened. And I don't know. I believed it, but there was no way for me to like connect those dots. I wasn't even, now I feel like I'm 1 degree of separation for everybody. I either know a little bit of everybody or I know a person who knows a somebody. But back then, there was no like, I couldn't think of anybody who would know somebody who might know somebody that had any type of connection to him. And that's what's so funny about it, because again, I just feel like the universe conspired. And so I'm playing in the House of Blues, and that happened to be his go-to spot. And he was finishing the musicology tour. And one night I was DJing and everybody started, oh my God, he's coming and he's here. And I was like, what's happening? And they said, Prince is here. And I was just like, oh, it's happening. And then I saw his security guards bringing in crates of records. And I said, it's really happening, because this means that he has a DJ. And at the time, I didn't know that he was such a party animal. And what I mean by that is like, there was after parties for everything. Like, there was an after party for everything. A dinner, there was an after party just to rewatch the concert from earlier. You know what I mean? Like, he was constantly having, he always had these gatherings. And I didn't know that. And as much of a fan as I was, or a fam as he would say, I again, this is before smartphones. I'm trying to remember if I even had a computer. I might have, but like, as much as I loved him, I didn't even know he was on tour. I didn't keep up with, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know what was happening with him. So even that was just, again, it was just really cool, because I didn't even know that I was gonna be in the right place at the right time. And so anyway, he came and did this party, and it was in the room next door to where I was playing. And a couple weeks later, I got a phone call saying he had asked me to play one of his parties. And I did, and that was also magical. I like telling this story in interviews because I like to encourage people to be as authentic to themselves and what they love and what they're into, no matter what, even when it feels like it's not gonna make you successful per se, or if it's a money thing, it's not necessarily a thing that's gonna make you money, or nobody else gets it, everybody thinks you're kind of crazy. Because at the time I was playing, which I still do this, but I just played what I wanted to. And I really wasn't, at that point, I had learned better how to play for people, but it was still playing out of my crates and what I wanted to play, you know? And I had friends at the time who were telling me like, Rashida, like if you want to play these big Hollywood parties, if you want to actually start making money as a DJ, you got to start playing top 40. And I just refused. And especially as a crate digger, I was like, I'm not gonna buy a bunch of new record. Like, there's a reason I spent all my money and time on these records. Like, this is what I'm gonna play. And so that first party that I played for Prince, you know, he was the first person to come in, and he immediately came up to me and started asking me like, how do you know about this record and that record, and so and so's playing on that record. I was playing a slide record, In Time, which to this day is still one of my favorites, and I love to play. And he started telling me about Larry Graham, who was going to be there later on that night. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, you know, everybody told me that these little crates of records were not going to take me very far, and here I have magnetized my hero to me, and he has a reason to talk to me, you know, and we're sitting up talking about records, and I was just like, this is amazing. And then later that night, Sheila E. was there at the party. There was so many amazing artists at the party, and it was my first time, like, you know, is playing something like this. And I see Sheila E. talking to Lenny Kravitz, and I'm already just kind of freaking out because she's there, and I'm just like, Sheila, love her so much. And I put on this George Duke record, I Want You for Myself, which is one of my all-time favorite disco records, and of course, just love George Duke. I didn't know Sheila's history with him, and I put on this record, and she comes over to me. And first of all, I'm just freaking out that she's even like coming over to talk to me. And she tells me I'm playing on this record. And now, of course, I can't not hear her, right? On that break. It's like, you know, of course that's her, but I had no idea at the time. You know, I was just playing this record that I loved. And again, these were not records that, you know, would have gone over well in, I don't know, like some top Hollywood club at the time or whatever. But again, being authentic to myself, no matter what, it somehow landed me in a room full of people who understood exactly what I was playing, whereas other people were like, what is this? This is not, they didn't get it, it wasn't good, it was never going, you know, I wasn't going to be able to do nothing with it. And then here I found myself in a room of people who all freaking understood it. And on top of that, you know, with Prince, it's like, I mean, to this day, I can't not credit him with putting me just in a totally different, you know, I was such an underground kid and an underground DJ, and you know, I've always kept a foot in that world, but he introduced me to just a whole different, I don't even know, just a whole different thing, right? And so to this day, you know, some of the things that I get to do as a DJ, and the rooms that I'm in, you know, I know it's a direct correlation to him having, you know, raised me up in that way. And so I'm so thankful. But yeah, I love telling that story because when I tell you, people was not, you know, people was like, you okay, you gonna keep playing in these hole in the wall spots, you know, you and your little music nerd friends, and it's not gonna get you too far. And, you know, it literally took me everywhere I ever wanted to be in the world with the artists that I love, like everything, you know. So
That's a hell of a story. I think our audience is like jumping out of their seats when they hear that you were playing Sly Stone and George Duke while meeting Prince and Sheila E. You use the word magnetize.
mm-hmm.
You definitely magnetize something there. I mean, I don't know how you manufacture this scenario, but the sequence of events is wild.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to go back to that particular moment. You're playing this party and you see the crates come in. At what point did you talk to Prince, and what was happening for you internally? I don't mean what you said, like what was going on in your mind?
So to separate the two events, right? I was just playing at the House of Blues, my normal Friday, Saturday night, when he showed up to do one of his parties. And that's when I saw them bringing in another DJ's crates. And that's when in that moment, I knew. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Because like I said, I had been telling people that I was going to be his DJ. I didn't know if he had a DJ, but if he did, it was going to be me. And I was sure of it. So in that moment, when I saw them bringing in this other DJ's crates, I was just like, oh, it's happening. And then sure enough, some of his band members had come out and were listening. And, I don't know exactly how all of that transpired, but 2 weeks later, I got a call saying he had wanted me to play his party. So that very first party is where I spoke to him for the first time, and the Sheila George Duke's record situation happened. But I just remember first of all, he disarmed me. Like I said, I was in there by myself, had already started playing for an empty room, and he was the first person who showed up. And he immediately walked up to me because I was playing the Sly record and whatever else I was playing. And that's when he started talking to me about the music. And I think because we were talking about music, and well, actually just we were talking about music, I think I was immediately like comfortable, and I didn't have a chance to freak out because yeah, no, because it's like I'm like, why didn't I freak out? Because he just started talking to me about music. And right off the bat, it's like, that's something I love to do, record store days, before that, after that, like, it's one of the few things that I don't know, that I feel very comfortable doing. And so I think that he kind of made it so that there was no I did not have a chance to freak out, and I just felt very like comfortable. And also too, the way he was talking to me, it was very easy, and almost had like felt like there was a familiarity or something. And maybe that's too just loving his music so much, and he really is so much in his music, like after getting to know him personally and be close with him, it's like he's all on the records. Like whatever you want to know about him, he's already put it in his music, like truly. So so that happened. But then like the Sheila moment, I mean, I did freak out because she was walking towards me, and I was just like, why is she coming over here? Like I couldn't believe it. And yeah, but then she also disarmed me because she told me she was playing on that record, and I was just like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Couldn't have planned this, couldn't have come up with this, and but I also, besides the being authentic to yourself being I think a key part of that story, the other part I love about that story is that we can come up with our plans and we can have our goals, and I don't think there's anything wrong with setting goals, but I think being open to what God or the universe has planned for you is so powerful, because as in this case and so many other things, it's like even when we think we're thinking big, it's really so small, what our human minds can come up with. And moments like that just remind me of like what God has planned for you is even wilder than like what you could come up with in your mind, because I couldn't have come up with that whole scenario. I could not have put that together, and the way it all came together so beautifully is just just a testament to that. So
Oh, that's amazing to hear. And I'm sure you've told this story before, but I had to ask. It's too significant. Like you said, you magnetize something that couldn't be planned.
But that's the part, right? It's the magnetizing, and you can't magnetize anything to you if you're acting like something else, or you're trying to be something else, or you're trying to do something else. Like if I had been following the blueprint of what people were telling me would make me successful, I I wouldn't have been playing any of those records. And I would not have magnetized those situations and my literal heroes to me. It gave them a reason to come talk to me. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, and again, it's like had I been trying to follow any type of other plan or blueprint, that would not have happened, or at least it certainly wouldn't have happened in the way that it did, you know? So yeah, that's how magnets work, right? Like you have to, yeah, you have to be the real thing, which is you, whatever it is, right? Like whatever that is. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I think you never know who's listening and you never know who's going to be impacted by that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So I know we spoke a lot about that moment with Prince.
Mm-hmm.
What happened next? You became Prince's DJ.
That party was just a very small taste of things to come. Because in that party, I was DJing and all those amazing artists that I love so much were just kicking it. It would go from that to me being, okay, so there was a party at Prince's house. Okay, let me go back. So when I'm playing these parties at House of Blues, which is how it started, he told me, Rashida, I'm going to get a house and we're going to throw the most legendary after parties that anybody has ever seen and will ever see, right? And he did. He rented a house called 3121, and which he ended up naming an album after that, and it kind of went on to be this whole thing for many, many years after. But he rented a house, and I remember I'm DJing. I think it was an Oscar after party or a Grammy after party. And so, you know, everybody that you can think of, all the A-list actors and actresses and, you know, musicians and stars and all these people are there. But what was happening that I was just like, oh, wow, like he was not lying when he said this, because I don't know. Yeah, nobody could even recreate this. Is I'm DJing and he says, okay, Rashida, the band's about to like come in with you. So he goes, I'm here and the band is set up here. And I look over and it's Stevie Wonder and Maceo Parker and Prince is playing, and I think Alicia Keys and Herbie Hancock had also hopped on and off that night. But basically it's like Prince's house band and the people that hop on and off, and they're all playing, and then Prince looks at me and tells me to scratch, and it's like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm playing with Stevie Wonder and Prince and Herbie Hancock, and you know, and probably Amir was probably on drums. Like, is it like, and the crazy thing is, not only is this not an exaggeration, I'm probably leaving a lot of stuff out. Because that's what I realize when I tell some of these stories, or when other people remind me of stuff that happened, because it was really beautiful. I was able to invite so many of my friends and my underground friends and music community to his house to experience some of these things. And sometimes they remind me of stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen, you know, like, but it would be just like that kind of stuff was just, that's the kind of stuff that would go on. And actually I was telling my girlfriend this the other day, because we were talking about Rochelle Farrell and just how amazing she is. And I said, yeah, after one of those same parties, it could have even been that same night. He would always have the parties go till the sun came up. And so often, you know, I would be the last person standing, you know, well, not standing, because he was definitely still standing, but I'd be the last person playing, or, you know, still kind of working in that capacity with the vibes, have the music going. And one of the nights I was finishing up and he said, when you get done, you know, meet us in the studio. And so I pack up my stuff. I go into one of his home studios, and it was so beautiful because he had like the clouds painted. And this is in LA. This is not at Paisley. It was at one of the house parties. Anyway, I go in there and Rochelle Farrell is in there singing. And there's a room of some of the last stragglers of the party, and Rochelle Farrell is in there singing, and then she's instructing us on like doing these runs with her, like kind of like this call and repeat with her, where she's doing these incredible runs and then she's having us sing with her. And I'm just like, I remember because it was in Mulholland. I remember driving down the hill that night and like crying tears of joy. And I was just like, I can't believe that this is my life. I can't believe that I manifested like the thing that has saved my life and just meant so much to my life, music. And here I am literally with like the people who have touched me the deepest and who have been a part of that, right? The saving my life and just the soundtrack to my life and all of that. And it's like now I'm just in these rooms with them, getting to experience, these gifts in this way, in this really intimate way. And just amazing. So it was just stuff like that. There was one night where the last two people, Prince had gone upstairs. This was at one of the houses too. Prince had gone upstairs. Everybody was gone. And it was really cool because I had played before the party, he had done a dinner. And so I had brought a crate of jazz records just to play for the dinner. And so now it's like 4 a.m. and everybody's gone, and Joni Mitchell and Herbie Hancock are still there playing pool. And
What?
so I happen to have, because before that I had all my more, up tempo party stuff, but I happen to have this crate of just jazz records. And so I got to play jazz records for Herbie Hancock and Joni Mitchell while they played pool. And it's just stuff like that, where I don't know, I couldn't have come up with this, but it's exactly what I wanted. It's exactly where I wanted to be and didn't know.
I'll
So
say this, I knew that you DJ'd for Prince. I'm not shocked that you've told me these things, but throughout this whole story, my mind just exploded like 10 times. Like, this is the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. Joni Mitchell and Herbie Hancock playing pool is insane. And Prince is even more. It's
well,
like,
and
it's so insane.
the funny thing is, as I'm kind of remembering some of these stories, it's like, right, just him alone. Because, we would just kick it, and sometimes it would just be us, and the band room would be set up, and he was teaching me how to play bass, and he would play guitar, and we would just be, just messing around and just kicking it. And like, and so it's so funny because as I'm talking about these other experiences, like, oh wow. And it's like, right, but just being with him was already,
Yeah.
but I think because even going back to how I met him, and like I said, how it just he disarmed me talking about music, and we just, I don't know, we just hit it off because of that, right? Just from jump, that becoming close to him and becoming friends with him and all of that, like it just yeah, those kind of experiences, it was just so, I don't know, it was just fun, and getting to be with him. But now I look back on it and it's like, oh right, just like the story of Stevie Wonder and Herbie and everybody playing all at the same time. It's like, right, just kicking it with him and talking about, and it wasn't just music, because he loved to talk about spirit. He loved to talk about politics. He was something that we connected on is, he was a bit militant, and that's my background as well. And so I just and let me not even just say militant, be conscious, just being conscious. And um yeah, and yeah, as much as he was music and just such the personification of that, he was also just an amazing human being, all around and beyond that. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those memories. It's mind blowing. I mean, like I said, I was aware, but just hearing it through your voice and walking through all of that, it's really quite wild. Yeah.
It's wild. And, I never talk about these things. I mean, I think, like I said, I've told the story for sure of the first time I've met him, because a lot of people ask that. And I really like even when I look back on that, just, that story, and how that could hopefully encourage somebody else who maybe feels like, nobody gets it, or, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make a living with my art or whatever it is. And it's just like, nah, if you just do you, your people will find you, and they can't find you otherwise, right? But these other stories, I don't ever talk about them, but when I do talk, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, yeah, no, it's amazing. And um our music relationship was so special to me too, because I think that what people may not know about him, people that know him know this, but the general public may not know, um just how, as influential as he was so open to being influenced. And I so that was my experience also. And I just love that, like, even though he was who he was, like, I would take him to hole in the wall clubs to hear DJs, to hear artists that I loved. And so everybody from, I took him to see Joy, I took him to see Jay Davy. When Thundercat made his demo, I was playing it for him, and he dug it, and all, it's like all my favorite DJs. I took him to see Spinna, and I took him to see Babito and Rich Medina, and I took him to these house music parties here in LA, and to the point where people sometimes would see him and be like, nah, like, why would he be in here? Like, that can't be him. Um, and so I loved that about him, because, well, he's exactly who he's always represented himself to be. It's like, yeah, he's this, you know, otherworldly, out of the stratosphere, rock star musician, but he comes from the underground. He comes from the underground, and he's a real artist. And so it wasn't odd to see him at a hole in the wall, hearing a band that everybody else knew, not too many people know about. So I loved that about him. And on the flip side, the musical experiences he gave me, that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I mean, he took me to see Stevie Wonder for the first time. He took me to see Shaka Khan for the first time. He knew how much I love Bjork and Radiohead, and he took me to see both of them for the first time, which was, so just stuff like that. Exchange is just, it was so special, because I guess what I'm getting at is that as much as, he was able to change my life and give me all these amazing experiences, he was also so open to being, being introduced to new experiences that were not necessarily glamorous, but were dope, and for somebody who loves music and is really into music, like, he got it. And I just always thought that was so cool, so yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, you've obviously continued to have different waves of success, and you're doing so well as a DJ. What was kind of the next phase for you?
Gosh, I mean, that was a good 10-year phase with him, touring and doing parties, and we worked on a movie, and we did a radio show, and all types of stuff that I'm forgetting and leaving out, but like, it was so much amazingness, but it also solidified for me that I could really take this seriously as a career. And so soon after, connecting with him, and like I said, just getting serious about it, I ended up getting management, and my management at the time was amazing. DGI, out in New York, because they managed Mark Ronson and Beverly Bond and people like that. And so that introduced me to the world of like corporate gigs, but not, I don't know, not cool corporate gigs, but like, just working with brands, and I would have never otherwise done that. And I would have never otherwise been introduced to that world. And what was really cool about it is that it also allowed me to like, go play this gig for this brand and still do me and but get paid really, really well. And then it
Yeah.
would allow me to go do my friend's underground party where I wasn't gonna get paid anything. You know what I mean? And so that was great for me because it allowed me to just kind of move differently and um yeah, again, just kind of now more so looking at DJing as beyond just a hobby and something that I just do anyway, but like, to really be able to make a living and buy a home and do all the things, take care of my family and do all the things that I've been able to do with it since. So that's what happened next. And I don't know. I'm leaving out a lot of stuff. I worked on music and I I don't know.
No, you mentioned a lot. You don't have to give every single year. You've mentioned many important phases. The reason why I asked, because you're continuing to have this success. I mean, Prince and afterwards. And I want to make sure to point that out. A lot of times I talk to people who might be known for something, or I might have heard of them for one thing, but that's not your whole life. I mean, it's
Right.
not. So I feel like talking through all the phases is important. You've worked with all these greats. You've gone on tour, Prince, other great famous artists. We've done modeling, done brand deals with, I guess, the top brands you could find. I mean, you're not playing like just whatever people ask you to play. You're a beat digger.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, staying true to yourself.
Online, you have a great series called Mama's Crates, and you share incredible music. You have the dopest taste, great presentation. You have that ear of a beat digger. Tell me about the idea for that. I mean, I really enjoy it.
I'm so happy that you dig it. Mama's Crates literally was born out of me not liking social media and not feeling like I was very good at it. And I definitely was one of those people, and sometimes I'm still that person where I'm just like I just really want to erase this app. Like I don't want to be on this app. I don't. This the whole social media world. Just it's a hard thing for me to get down with. I feel like I'm an in real life person, um and I feel like everything from just even talking to people to all the different things I'm into, like I don't think that social media like gives the best representation. And I kind of realized that like, oh, but if you have the skill of being able to curate and make something look like something, then you can be successful on social media. And then you can be like the real thing at whatever it is that you do. But if you don't know how to present it and make it look good on social media, well, then it's like, you don't exist or something anymore. And that's not true, but that's, kind of I feel like the environment that's been created. And for me, I was very frustrated and I was just like, it feels like a job that I don't want. And I don't really like posting. And the funny thing is, Mama's Crates, I've been posting my record collection since I got on Instagram, right? Which I want to say is like 2013, 2014. And my record posts usually would be the ones that got like the least amount of interaction, right? And I realized that like if I posted a selfie, which I'm not really that person either, but if I posted a selfie, it would get all these likes and stuff. And I was just like, this is so stupid. And this feels like a waste of my life, like, this is ridiculous. So I've been complaining about it for 1,000 years. And one of my girlfriends was like, Rashida, the way it's set up now as a DJ, you actually have to be on here. So you better reframe this and figure out a way to reframe this. And how I did that was going back to my record store days. I was like, okay, what is something, that I can post on here? Because I don't consider myself a content creator either, right? But I was like, what can I put on this platform that makes me feel like I'm doing something purposeful, like I'm doing something that something people can get out of, like not just a selfie, you know, which again felt like such a waste of life. So it's like, okay, something purposeful, but then also it needs to be something that um is fun for me. And because, you know, as you know, we just got interrupted by my 10-year-old, it's like I have a child. So I also like this has to be something sustainable. And what I learned during 2020, you know, all of us were streaming and having to do the thing. And it was like such a struggle for me because I have a child and you know, it's just us. And there's, you know, it's like you can't she ain't sitting through no type of DJ set. She don't care, you know, and and that's just where my life is at. And it's that's fine. But I realized like streaming was like such a struggle for me. The long form streaming, right? It was not easy. So the way I came up with what Mama's Crates is now, because like I said, I've always posted my collection, is I thought to myself, well, okay, what's something that like is so easily accessible to me and that I could do in my sleep? And I thought about my days at the record store at More Dusty Than Digital. And because I worked there, I have samples for days and days and days. And you know, it's not a new concept to play a sample and then to play the original and then play the thing the song that sampled it. But for me, it was just it was a way to, like I said, re-engage with social media because I feel like one has to, right? At this point, I mean, people, you know, they don't even go to your website anymore. They go to your Instagram, you know, or whatever other thing that you're on. And so I was like, okay, let me do something where at first I wanted to play samples that for sure everybody wouldn't be familiar with. But then it's funny because there's been some that I kind of even talked myself out of playing because I'm like, oh no, this is too basic. Like everybody knows this one. But then sometimes I would do it and people would be like, I had no idea. Or you forget that it's not just us, right? Like our generation of crate diggers. There are kids that have never, and not just kids, there are adults that are not familiar with Rotary Connection or not familiar with Minnie Riperton's discography at all, or they only know the one song from her or whatever. And so it got me excited again. And I was like, this is it. This is the thing I can do so that I don't erase the Instagram app like I want to. This is the thing that feels purposeful because people are getting something out of it. And also, you know, another reason I don't love social media is I'm not really a social person like that. Like I don't like talking to strangers. I don't. It's like not my thing. But the thing I like talking about is music. And again, just like record store days, you know, I really enjoy talking about music. And very much like the record store, what's so exciting about the comment section on Mama's Crates is everybody else is talking about the music. And so I always learn things, you know. I mean, I've even found out that I have other samples in my, you know, in my crates that I didn't even realize I had because somebody else pointed out, oh, I see you got such and such, and I have it for, you know, whatever song I have it for. And they're like, oh, you know, so and so sampled it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that, you know? So it's just been so cool and enjoyable. And like, you know, it reminds me of like a virtual record store conversation, you know? And then of course, you know, there's so many probably older heads on there who are like, stop giving, you know, stop sample snitching, stop giving up. And I'm like, sir, it is 2025. If you don't already know that there are whole websites dedicated to revealing every sample you ever wanted to know, you know? And it's just funny because I think, you know, maybe people think I'm younger than I am. And so they're like, oh, like, you know, it's really funny. I mean, they're like really bothered by it. And I'm like, they don't know, like, I'm the same age as you. Like, you know, like what you know about this De La Soul. And I'm like, I bought it the day it came out. I went to Tower Records and I was there. I got it. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny. But yeah, but I do enjoy the music conversations that happen, and it's been great. And I actually, you know, I've taken a little break. I have some that I've recorded You've re-inspired me. I'm gonna put them up. But I also, I did them like nonstop for a little over a year, and then I just kind of felt like it's still fun, but I kind of was getting like a little bit bored with it. So I've been trying to figure out like I kind of just want to, I mean, I just want to play music for people, not necessarily just samples. So I was kind of thinking I'll still do that because I have so many still to go. But I was even just thinking about like I just want to play records for people that I don't know, that have touched my heart and my life and they may or may not know about, and so anyway, so I've just been into that. So I've been sometimes just playing a song on a record, and I just give you a little information about it, and just like if you like this, like please go down this rabbit hole because it's amazing. And yeah, but
No, I think it's really great that you reframe something. I think it's worthy to be cautious of social media, all the mental ups and downs that are all unnecessary. But this is a business, and you made it work in a way that works for you, that's genuine. I think it's great. As a person who does a podcast about beat digging, I really appreciate it.
oh,
People love beat digging more than I think everyone knows. So
great,
I think it's great what you did.
thank you.
As a, let's just say, a popular DJ, there are easier ways for you to be successful, but you're doing something genuine and you're
Mhm.
bringing up the culture of beat digging. And I think it's really important. So I just want to salute you for that.
I love that. Thank you. And you're like re-inspiring me to get back on it because yeah, I really didn't, again, when I started doing it, I had no idea that anybody would care or pay any attention. For me, it was like I said, I literally was on the verge of deleting the Instagram app, and clearly because business and so many other things come through it, it was like I basically just had to figure out a way to keep myself engaged. And that was it. And like I said, because it was fun for me, but I've been so pleasantly surprised to see people getting so much out of it. People who do know what I'm playing, and then people who don't. New crate diggers, old crate diggers. So that's been really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, you're doing all this kind of great work with brands, with Fendi, with Nike, with Vogue, with Apple. There are more glamorous things you could be doing than playing vinyl that you like, but it's working, right? So keep it going. I think that's good for everyone.
You know, once a nerd, always a nerd. It's just so funny that you say that because um even though, for me doing the Mama's Crate series and just digging in my own collection and vinyl, it brought me a whole new audience and it brought me so many amazing followers. And it's so funny because I can't tell you, kind of going back to my original story about being authentic to yourself no matter what. I have friends who are in the business, they're just like, Rashida, like the record thing, like, and I'm like, yeah, but because you're not a record collector, so you don't, this doesn't mean anything to you. But
Yeah.
there are people out there who are as passionate about this as me and get as excited about this as me. I mean, it's why I started off just before Instagram, before you could put videos and all that. It's like I would just put photos of my records because to me it's like record porn. It's like I just like looking at them, I just like looking at, oh, and I have an original pressing, like, ooh, like, and it's whatever, like it's just exciting to me. And it's funny because people that don't get it, they don't get it. And for sure there's people that were like, like the record thing is, I don't know, it's cool, I
No,
guess.
you're right and they're wrong. I'll tell you that, right? Absolutely, they're wrong. I mean, digging and record collecting is a very tactile thing that is quite personal. It makes you really enjoy the music. It is your life, it's my life, and everyone who listens to this show, it's their life. And
Yeah.
it's a great, great thing.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And I will say I'm very proud that I have encouraged many a friend and people around me to start collecting records. And even with Prince, like after we started kicking it, he had a turntable brought into his room and into his house, and he started playing the records again. And it was just, because that's the thing, right? Like you said, it's this tactile, it's more than just the music. It's the cover, and it's the physicality of taking the time to put the record on. And I think just really listening to records all the way through, which, this whole streaming and like music in the ether that you don't possess, you don't have it for yourself, you can't, like, I don't know. I don't think that, let's say, like somebody who's growing up in the streaming era and has never experienced like listening to a vinyl record, they're just listening to the song that they like, or they're not getting that full experience of listening to this whole work as a whole, right? And it's so special. And so I get so excited to actually, all of my friends that have started collecting records, you know, via my influence, they grew up, we all grew up with records. So for them, it's really just a return, which is also exciting. But I also get really excited about the idea of young people. And I've met so many people younger than me that are collecting vinyl, and I'm just like, gives me hope for the future, because it's yeah, I don't know, other than if I'm like working out or something, I still don't understand like the streaming thing. Like, I can't get down with it. The playlist thing, it's kind of cool to be able to put stuff together, but I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
I need it. I'm like, I need to
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
it, and all the things, the art, and the again, and then the process. I think it's like the difference between like going to Starbucks to get a coffee and being at home and taking out your French press and opening up grinding your coffee beans and putting the coffee in there and pouring the hot water, and then you sit down, you take that moment, and you're drinking the coffee. It's like,
yeah,
it's a meditation, it's a ritual, right? And
yeah.
that's
It's a ritual. Yeah.
what you get with these that you can't get with the digital, you know, music.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 100% a ritual that I really enjoy. The liner notes, the cover, flipping
Yeah.
the record, everything, and even the form of the music. I don't know if John Coltrane made, his version of Favorite Things. If he released it now, I don't know if people would like it, right? It's like an 11-minute song. So it's a different format and lended itself to different music. That's a little bit deeper, if you ask me.
Yes. And here's some more nerdy music stuff, and this is something that Prince taught me. So when I first started playing with Prince, I was playing all vinyl, and then Serato came to be, and I was one of the last DJs to get on Serato. Actually, Amir Questlove used to make fun of me because he would come to the parties or the shows or whatever, and he would see that I was still carrying records, and he'd be like, dang, Rashida, like, you still carrying crates of records around, like, come on. And God bless him, shouts out to Amir, because when I did get on Serato, he gave me a hard drive with like all his stuff and other amazing DJ stuff. And so my start on Serato was like, it was a good start thanks to him, but it took me forever. And even when I started on Serato, I would still bring 2 crates of records, and then I'd have the Serato, because it was weird, and I would get lost. It was like too many choices, and it was just like, it's a very different experience than bringing the records that you even know how to find them, like by the color and the thing. It was just, so going from that to trying to remember the names of things and stuff, it was weird. But eventually, I started playing on Serato. So now I'm playing all this digital stuff. And Prince and I were talking about it one day, and I was just saying how much I still loved real records. And I told him, I said that it feels different. Like, there's something that feels different about it. And he was like, yeah, well, of course it feels different. And he said, the when you're playing the record, he said it's a waveform. and that's why it feels warm. And he said when you're playing digital music, it's numbers, and in between the numbers are like little microscopic spaces that you can't hear it or like detect it necessarily, but it feels different. And when he told me that, I was like, I knew it. I knew records were superior. I knew it.
When you frame it like that, it makes 100% sense.
Yeah, right? Like kind of like these matrix numbers versus a constant wave. Although I guess that's where the technology, you know, how people bridge that gap is, you know, playing a waveform as opposed to an MP3. You know, the bigger and bigger the file, I guess the less spaces or the tighter it is, or you know, but still, since I'm speaking amongst my people, I'm like, we all know records are superior, so we'll just leave it at that.
Hell yeah. Hell yes. We're going to move into everyone's favorite segment of the show. It's called Drop a Gem on 'em. It's a word association game. You tell me what comes to mind. It can be a feeling, an experience, a personal story, anecdote, really anything.
Okay.
Some are artists, some are places and spaces.
Okay.
And I have a feeling you have some stories. Slum Village, the look of love.
The first thing that comes to mind is working at More Dusty Than Digital, and when that Slum Village, I guess it wasn't a bootleg, I guess it was the demo record.
J88.
Well, the J88 look of love, I'm like, I feel like that's right here somewhere. That's just like one of my most coveted records because it has the remix, the version that I love the most, with the mini sample and the Love Jones version sample. But when I think about the look of love and I think about the record, the Fantastic, I think about the demo, which I heard in More Dusty Than Digital, and just like my mind being blown. And I also remember thinking I was being introduced to like my new favorite producer, and then coming to find out that he was already one of my favorites, because all of my favorite songs on the De La record, the Far Side record, and the Tribe records, it's like, oh, it was him all along and I didn't know. Like, you know, like they were like literally my favorite songs on these records were produced by him. I just didn't know it until Slum Village came out, and, you know, or the demo came out, and I got properly introduced to him. So that's what I think of. And then of course I think of Minnie, and I think of that amazing sample, and it makes me think of Tribe and all the things. So yeah, a lot of association.
Yeah, I like hearing that memory of yours. Everyone kind of heard about Dilla at different times just because the way he came out with the demo tapes and then being on different people's records, Far Side and Tribe and all that. So it's all kind of like a, let's say, irregular way of coming out of someone who went on to be a superstar. So it's cool to hear your experience.
So interesting. Yeah, and that record, I mean, yeah, Look of Love is top tier jam all the way around.
Sade, By Your Side, Neptune's remix.
I mean, I love Sade. Love the Neptunes. That, what does that bring to mind? I guess that probably, I mean, I remember getting that record, so I guess it just kind of reminds me of that time period. And actually that was the one, and I think it was her last, it was my first time seeing her, but I think it was her last tour, the Lovers Rock tour. And yeah, and that was amazing. So I think
all right. Well, I thought it's the kind of thing you might play out sometimes. It's a great record. Everyone loves when they kind of think of that song And I know you DJ'd for Pharrell. That's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why I brought it up. All right. Prince, piano and a microphone version, 17 days.
Ugh. I'm like, did we already talk about this? 17 days. Because I'm like,
Off camera, we talked about it.
did we? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
17 Days is for sure one of my favorite Prince songs. I mean, I have so many. So I'll say that's one of my favorite up-tempo Prince songs. But the first time I heard that, I got it on 45, and I think it's the B-side to Let's Go Crazy, or maybe even Purple Rain. I'm like, I have it here somewhere. I should just look. Anyway, it's the B-side to like one of his big hits. And I'll never forget the first time that I heard it, that I played it. I just played it over and over and over and over until it was just like imprinted into my soul and my psyche. And then when I heard that version that you're talking about, actually I think I cried, because I everything I heard after, it was really hard for me to even listen to his music after he transitioned, um for a long time, for many years. And I don't know, one of the gifts of getting to hear him play so many times and in so many different ways, from a concert to just him playing the piano in his room, was that whenever he played, it was never the same song, right? Like he could play, I've heard him play Purple Rain more times than I can count, and every single time it was different, but always touched you, touched your soul, and it just touched you deeply. And 17 Days was already a song that touched me deeply, but hearing that live version and just knowing him. And I think I mentioned earlier that like whatever you want to know about him, like it's all in the music. And yeah, and that song, it's about heartbreak, and it's about longing, and that was a part of what he dealt with throughout his life, and as we all do, right? That's why he connected with so many of us. And anyway, it's just really touching, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I could have just
I know it's at times it could be at least bittersweet. That song in particular, I only heard it a couple years ago, at least this piano on a microphone version,
Mhm.
which for those listening, it was released in 2018. So it's basically demos that Prince recorded that went on to be songs that came out in the early 80s. And this broken down version has a long piano intro,
Yes.
and it is fantastic. You feel
It's
like you're in the room. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Money don't matter.
Money don't matter tonight. Um, I love that song. I think that's probably one of my favorite songs on Diamonds and Pearls. And I think that one of the many things that I love so much about Prince and his music, and again, why I think he connects so deeply with so many of us, is he was such he loved to speak on what was happening in the world, and what was happening at the time. And it's wild because you listen to that, or you even listen to Party Up or America or any of his songs where he talks about what's going on in the world, whether it be politically or just even just on a human level. And it's like that song is relevant today. It was obviously when he wrote it, he was inspired to write it, but it's like it's just speaking on the reality of this world, and where we're at, and really where we've been at, because it's really just been this like destructive cycle that kind of keeps playing over and over and over. And I love that about him, that, you know, as much as he could make the best love song you'll ever hear, he could make the craziest jam, you know, you've ever heard, but it's like he could do that and he could also talk about like very real shit that's going on in the world, or going on in your life, you know. um but that's what I love about Money Don't Matter Tonight. It's both, right? He's talking about personal things and you know what happens, you know, relationship between in relationships, and you know, just us as humans and how humans act and what they do, but then also what goes on a global scale. And anyway, and you know, he's such an incredible poet, so he just, it's also eloquent, the way he puts it, and then it's just a beautiful song. I don't know, that's a gorgeous
Yeah.
tune,
Yeah, I think that's a good word for it. Gorgeous.
to say the least.
There's a song here that I've also heard in maybe the past 5 or 10 years.
Mhm.
It's the B-side to Raspberry Beret. She's
Mhm.
always in my hair.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, that's another one of my favorite Prince songs. It's just such a dope. It's just such a dope song. I don't know what comes to mind at first. Just how much I love it, and again, like, you know, he's talking about the human condition, but then again, knowing him too, it's like, you know, it's like that, knowing somebody really loves you, um, and still, as much as you want it, still pushing it away, you know. And I guess that's one of the things I get from listening to that song. um yeah.
Yeah. You have this firsthand experience. I'll share a little bit about how I heard of that song. I didn't know it when it came out. I only knew it the past few years.
Mhm.
It's because you might have heard D'Angelo remade it
He did
on
a
one of his
great
live albums,
cover of
right?
that, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I heard the D'Angelo one first, and then went back and heard the Prince one, which I'm totally in love with. And the thing about Prince is, I mean, he's got a catalog that went on for decades, so it's almost like you might find something new as you keep going.
It's amazing. No, I mean, can I go back to earlier in the interview when I was
Of
telling you
course.
that I kind of realized, like, well, here's the thing. You know, I thought I was a fan that knew a lot of his music, but once I came into his world, I realized what a novice I was, because he introduced me to so much of his music that, you know, had been around for ages. I just wasn't familiar, but also his fams are like, they're, you know, they're like princeologists, a lot of them. And you know, there's a whole like bootleg, like unreleased, but you know, before he transitioned and the vault started, they started putting stuff from the vault, that was already like a big thing in his community. And so even just via that, I learned so much of his music that I had no idea. But he put me on to so much of his stuff that I didn't know, you know. And yeah, he's that's what's so exciting about him as an artist. It's like he's kind of like the art of digging. It's like you'll never get to the bottom of it. You'll never hear all the records. You won't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you just won't. And I mean, there's, how many artists can you say that about? He was so prolific.
You know, you just brought up something for me. A friend of mine, he's a DJ, he's a beat digger, he's on
Mhm,
social media, and he posts something about the Black Album on
mhm.
vinyl.
Uh-huh. I'm
And
like, okay.
apparently, this is worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I have that. I mean, I don't know where it is, but I have it in my house somewhere.
uh,
And I didn't know it was like, I knew the story, how it was pulled from the shelves and everything, but I
mhm.
just didn't realize this record was worth so much. I mean, I bought it for like $5, $10.
Amazing.
And yeah, I mean, it's a great record. It's just a very interesting story about that. I wonder if, I mean, I think it's worth thousands of dollars, some
Yeah.
pressing of it. Not
The
sure.
the Warner Brothers pressings for sure. I have a bootleg of it, which for a long time I thought it was I thought it was a real one. But I also, again, pre-internets, I didn't really know what the value, you know, it, But now looking at it, I'm like, oh no, the ones that are worth like thousands and thousands of dollars are the very short run that Warner Brothers made before he pulled it, you know. So yeah, they're worth a
I
lot.
still don't know whether the one I have to find it. Yeah,
Hmm.
probably. I
There's
mean,
lots of
if it was a
bootlegs, but
many
that's
thousand dollar,
that's
I
what I
doubt
have.
I would have bought it for $5. So
I mean, back in the, if somebody doesn't know what they have, which especially pre-internet, a lot of, you know, I mean, there's always obviously been like record aficionados who knew exactly what, but you could go to some random thrift store and somebody just, gave away their records to the thrift store, and there's all types of treasures in there that the people at Goodwill or whoever have no idea, and they just want to get rid of them. So it could just go, if it's a Warner Brothers one, it's worth a lot of money.
I gotta find that record.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm like,
mean,
let's circle back on that because now I want to know.
yeah, I have to find out. I have to find out. I'm gonna bring up a newer song, a song that's, I mean, in the past couple of years, I love this song. Thundercat and Tame Impala, No More Lies.
Oh, Thundercat. Well, Thundercat, what that brings up for me is I've known him since he was a youngster, and he was in Sarah. That's how I met him. And he used to come to all my parties and he used to play at my parties. And he was just, he's always been so dope. And I remember when he was playing in Erica's band, he's was working on music, and he gave me the demo of what would come to be the first album that he put out, which also just like really touched my heart, and I love so much. And I played that for Prince, and Prince dug it, and he anyway, it's just that was like a whole time period, a whole special phase of my life. And so when I think about Thundercat, I think about back in the day. I think about like, yeah, like early and mid 2000s, and even I guess like the early 2010s and stuff, and just watching, like, I guess hearing his music and knowing how special it was, and then once the world caught wind of him and how amazing he is, just watching that whole thing was really amazing. And I'm so proud of him, and so thankful that he, well, that's what it is, right? Like he took a chance on himself because he was in all these amazing bands, but he put himself out there, and what he had to put out there is what so many of us needed. I told him, after Prince transitioned, that same record, that first record, there were so many songs on there that like really helped me through the grieving process. And yeah, it was just so beautiful. I'm like, shout out Cat.
Yeah.
He's a great
He
guy.
is a hell of an artist,
Oh,
super
he's incredible.
original. Yeah,
He's incredible.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Them Changes, one of my all-time favorite
Yeah.
songs.
So
When it
good.
comes in, it's like, wow, it's like such a banger. And I feel like we were talking about George Duke earlier. I
Mhm.
feel like he kind of modernizes some of that vibe, right? Like he's
Mhm.
abstract. When you think about that song, Reach for It, right? Reach
Yeah.
for It by George Duke.
Mhm.
Um,
Thundercat is like, you know, uh, what's the bass player? Jaco Pastorius.
oh,
Uh, yeah,
Portrait of Tracy.
yes. And that's when I hear Thundercat, I feel like, I mean, he's like literally a genius, brilliant. But I think like he's like a mix between like Jacko and Bootsy, and like, I don't know, bass players are really like, they're a whole different type of human, I feel like, right? Like bass players are really something else. But yeah, I just think he's just like, he's one of those, he's like it's jazz, but it's funk, and then too, because he's from this generation, then there's a whole other twist on it, right? But yeah, he's so dope.
I'm glad you brought up Jaco Pastorius. That song, Portrait of Tracy. For a period of time I played bass poorly, but I played
Oh.
bass, right?
Mhm.
And I had a guitar teacher, and I was like, teach me a song just so I could kind of get into it. And I
Mhm.
said, teach me Portrait of Tracy. He's like,
Ah,
this
so
is the
good.
this is the hardest song you can choose. But I mean, I could play it, not really well, but I could
Ah,
play it.
that's an amazing song to be able to play on bass.
It was really fun to learn. I'll just say it's not an easy one to start with.
Yeah, no, I'm like, as I'm listening to it in my head, I'm like, that's not easy at all. So I commend
Yeah.
you on challenging yourself like that.
I don't play at this point, so let's just say it's a memory. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. It's been fantastic talking music with you. Like I said earlier, what you're doing is really important. You're making beat digging and this inherently obscure culture popular for everyone. I think it's really, really important.
Ah, that's such a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. You've been through so many wild phases from your early days DJing to working with Prince, being a tour DJ, now all of these great big partnerships and all the work you're doing now. If the next phase of your life were to be a success, what would have happened?
The next phase of my life, what would look like success to me? Well, I'm a mother. So for me, real success will be just for my child to be happy, healthy, and I want to continue to show her via my example that you know whoever you are at your core, whatever your interests are at your core, that like you can really build a real life just being you, right? Like just doing you. And she's so cool and she's got so many interests already where I'm just like, yeah, like I just hope that I can be an example of like that you can, yeah, that you can really make a life for yourself just doing what you enjoy the most, whatever that is, right? And I think that's what's so special about this human experience. It's like none of us come here without something that we're already made for and that we're built to do. And it doesn't matter, like for instance, my daughter loves insects, and it's like she's helped me to appreciate insects, and I find like so much beauty in them now, which whereas before is like I was like, ooh, I didn't want anything to do with them. But it just, again, it goes to show you that like, there's something for everything, and we all come here with whatever this special mission is that we have. And I think, of course, between life roughing you up and the world and society and all these things, so many of us get pulled from that, whatever this thing is. But I hope via my journey so far, that she can feel confident and encouraged to really just do whatever it is that she really loves and has a genuine interest and natural interest in, right? um and I definitely, I what I see for myself in the future is getting back into my visual arts, and what I would like to do is even bridge the gap between, and I don't even know if it's really a gap, but really bridge my worlds between being a visual artist and of course, music will always and forever be such an important, huge part of my life. So yeah, that's, I don't know what that looks like exactly. And I'm, like I said from my story before, I'm kind of leaving some of it to God and the universe to like come up with something even better than like what I have in my head. But um, I see somehow having those two things going on, and that would make me really happy. Oh my gosh, just like beautiful things and beautiful music, and like that's all I want. I just I one of my soul's purposes, one of my soul's purpose for sure, is to create beauty. And I just, and again, that's visual beauty or, you know audible beauty, but that's what like excites me and lights me up. And so the ideal future for me would just be being surrounded by that even more than I already am.
I see nothing but success for you, Rashida. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Peace.
All right. Peace.
Just give me 30 seconds of your time. Firstly, a huge thank you for checking out the show. This started off as an idea in my mind. To see the growth and the support from the beat digging community from around the world has been fantastic. Secondly, if you support what we do here, take a moment and join the 19% of listeners and subscribe on this app. It makes a huge difference. And my promise to you is to grow this show to make it even more of what you love, more guests, more interesting conversation, more beat digging knowledge. We appreciate your support. Peace.